Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Garbage Time. And there's something I wanted to address immediately. And that was the fact that in previous episodes of Garbage Time, which was last week because this show has not been running for a long period of time. But last week, apparently every time I'd say Garbage Time, I was laughing. I want to make you a guarantee that in today's show, I will not be laughing when I say Garbage Time. I am not in a laughing mood today. I really am not. The United States, people ask me if I knew what I was getting into when I was moving over here, and they were talking about Trump, and they were talking about, PC and everything else, right? Police shootings. They did not warn me about how fucking cold it gets over here. I mean, shit, I knew it was going to be an adjustment. Coming from Australia, I knew that I would have to reset my body climate, right? But what the hell is going on here? Apparently it's going to be colder in Chicago, which is only 1 or 2 states away, from where I am. It's going to be colder there than it is in the Antarctic. And you guys set up the biggest and best country in this? Like, how does that work? Unbelievable. I had to take the car in to get new tires today, right? And when I got out of the car to go and pay for the thing, because you're in the car, it's not snowing or raining, so there's a bit of sunshine out there. So you think, it looks cold, even though you're not feeling it. But how deceptive is it when you get out and the wind just uppercuts you, and you're just like, oh. What is this? And then people back home, they're sending me pictures of the beach, they're sending me pictures of barbecues, they're sending me pictures surfing. Oh, maybe I made a huge mistake. Jesus. But then I think of where I am. And I think the Super Bowl week is upon us. And I've been holding it because, as Jason Whitlock said, some things are best if you just let them marinate a little bit. So I took a little bit of a break, a few days of talking American football, went back to talking about basketball. And so we'll get to the Super Bowl in a minute. But I wanted to talk about something when I was driving the wife to work. And when I was coming back, this is early because her shift changed. So I was driving her to work. It's about 5 a.m. So I turned on the radio, couldn't find anything. But then I did come across ESPN, the ticket. And Doris Burke was on there. And I actually like Doris Burke. A lot of people think that she was put on just as like she's like a Katie Nolan, for example. She's got no basketball knowledge. No, absolutely not. Doris Burke is one of the best commentators, male or female, out there. And I stand by that. I would love to have her on as a guest of the show, because I could really pick her brain. She's got an excellent basketball mind. And I would love to see women like her put in places where they analyze a game, as opposed to, as I said, the Katie Nolans or the other idiots out there who are just, a pretty face. And they don't do anything in terms of progression for women analyzing the sport. I've always said that. If women can do the job, let them do the job. But don't just put them in because of women. And Doris Burke has laid a very, very solid foundation for somebody to come after her. And there's very little backlash, at least on my part, when it comes to Doris Burke. However, all that being said, there is something I disagreed with her about. And it was only one sentence, and of course I didn't grab the clip because it was on the radio. But she said, in reference to the Anthony Davis situation, how it's good for basketball, and this is more exciting, this developing trade, all the developing trade scenarios, is more exciting than watching the games. And once again, it just instantly clicked with me. It was like, bam, I got it. Because she was actually praising the game, and this is where I disagree with her. I agree with the premise, right? But I disagree that it's good for the game. Because when your product is the gossip and the hype, then your product is terrible. I'm sorry to say it, because I do love basketball, but it's the fact. And this was very surprising to me when I moved over here, because I always thought that the product was sound. But when you get over here, you realize how poorly The NBA does very little in terms of doing itself justice. And I've used this example on other shows. I can't remember if I've used it on this show because I'm a podcast guest on other places too. But I've used this example. Just turn on NFL Live on ESPN, if you ever do. And that is a fantastic show. It shows you all the schematics, all the strategies, got ex-players talking about the game and all that stuff. Compare NFL Live to The Jump, which was meant to be the basketball equivalent of NFL Live, right? And The Jump, all The Jump talks about is Instagram posts, or whose shoes people are wearing, or somebody tweeting, or unfollowing somebody on Twitter. Come on. There are actual genuine NBA fans that couldn't care less about that nonsense. We want a show like NFL Live. We want to be able to sit down and listen to a coach and understand why they're not doubling the ball handle in situations like that. Break that down for us. Don't tell us about who follows who on Instagram and who's sending each other messages and no, who cares? What self-respecting fan actually cares about this? And it goes back to what Doris Burke was saying. Fans care more about the drama than the product itself of the games. Because okay, it's great for ESPN, right? Because they're able to sell the game 365 days a year. But it's not great for the league because people aren't showing up to the games. I was going to go to the game tonight, the Pistons and Bucks. Tickets were relatively cheap, but the weather is preventing us from going up because it's just not safe. It's going to get a lot colder, and the roads are going to become icy. So it's not worth the hour drive to go up there for that. But the tickets are about 6 rows back. Think about this. Detroit, they don't have a bad team. They don't have a good team either. They're within striking distance of making the NBA final. Not the NBA finals, excuse me, the NBA playoffs. The Bucks, you can make an argument that they could be in the NBA finals this year. This could potentially be a first-round playoff matchup as well. Let's not discount that. And they're $20. The tickets are $20 for 6 rows back. We're not talking about the bleachers. God, those tickets are about $4 each. But isn't that insane how little people care about actually going to the game to an NBA game? However, everybody is still talking about Anthony Davis. Okay, he requested a trade. I am guilty of this too, by the way. I did an episode yesterday talking about where he could go. But I still was interested in going to the game. The only thing that stopped me was weather. And you can't tell me, well, maybe other people like that too. No, because there's no interest in going to Pistons games. This would not be the first time that I've seen a game. Oklahoma City came to town. Same exact situation. Paul George, Russell Westbrook, all those guys up against Blake Griffin. That's a pretty good matchup. That should be marketed. We don't get that. Where do you get these matchups actually promoted on ESPN? No, you get individuals promoted on ESPN about what shoes they're wearing or what color shoelaces they have on. Or why somebody didn't wash their socks, last night. It's unbelievable. People actually care about the sport and they are being pushed out whilst this gossipy drama happens. And yeah, I get it. It's a big deal if Anthony Davis gets traded. But the hypotheticals have actually... It's not just if a player gets traded that supplants the NBA games. It's now the hypotheticals of where he gets traded. The game is like 4th or 5th on the priority levels of marketing within the NBA. And that to me is it's unforgivable if you love the game. Because we want to see action, we want to see players. And the frustrating thing is there's a market for this. People do love basketball, they just hate the NBA. And I'm talking about hardcore sports fans. If you are a hardcore sports fan in the United States, chances are you do not like the NBA. You love college basketball, you love college football, you love NFL. There's probably more hardcore sports fans that like the NHL rather than the NBA. And that is disturbing. That really is. And the league needs to pull its finger out. Otherwise, it's never going to improve. People always thought, like when I was back in Australia, I always thought that it was probably going to be a matter of time before the NBA actually surpassed the NFL as the dominant sport in America because they had the global audience. But what I didn't take into account is how much their domestic audience was just falling through the roof. Falling through the ground. They do not have a domestic audience here that really gives two damns. And to be honest with you, I can't blame them. How many of those fans were probably fans until players decided to just sit out games for the hell of it? Or they decided to just leave. Which is fine, they're allowed to do that. That's under the CBA, they're allowed to do that. But when they flaunt it on national TV like LeBron did with the decision, that is a big reason why a lot of fans probably turned off it. Now, he did come back, I grant you that, but then he left again. And then if you're a Lakers fan, a true Lakers fan, not a tourist or something, or even worse if you're a tourist when you think about it, because you may have based your entire trip on coming and seeing LeBron play, and now all of a sudden he's quote-unquote injured, and he's been injured even though the MRI showed nothing, not even a sprain, and yet he's sat this entire time out. It must be incredibly frustrating. I would be furious. Because those tickets would not have been cheap. And I can't remember who said it. It might have been Kornheiser. It might have been somebody like it. I don't know. It might have been someone that emailed me because it was a while ago. But they said the easy solution to this is if the star players are not playing, just like if you go to the opera and the lead act is not playing, you're entitled to a refund. How quickly the NBA will turn then. Anyway, I didn't want to harp too much on that, but it was interesting that Doris Burke said that it's great for ESPN, and that's probably why the NBA is getting paid so much money from places like ESPN and TNT, because it's constant drama. But at some point, that drama will start to eat yourself because it will appeal to casual fans, but you've got an expiration date with casual fans. They're only casual fans for so long. Either they turn into lifelong fans or they walk away. There's no either. You can't be a casual fan for the rest of your life. Because at some point you'll start to figure it out. You'll see the same cycle. The same cycle we saw with Kobe. People trying to promote Kobe as being the greatest of all time. We have now seen it with LeBron. When LeBron leaves, I don't know who the next guy will be. Because now, if you dare say anything good about any other player like James Harden or Russell Westbrook, there's instant criticism leveled towards them. You cannot praise those guys. So I don't know who the next guy, maybe it'll be Zion Williamson, I don't know. But the point that I'm making is, if you're a fan of LeBron, you will see, whenever that next guy comes along, you will see the exact same cycle. If your eyes are an inch open, or not even that, a centimeter, a millimeter open, you will realize and be able to recognize the exact same steps. So you don't have a choice. If you're a casual fan for a little bit, and then you walk away, or you stay with it. Now, if you stick with it, kudos to you, because I'm finding it harder and harder every single day to do it. That being said, what I'm finding very easy to do lately is to be a fan of football. I love this sport. I absolutely love it. The culture, the way it is promoted here, it's done right. And I can see why so many fans were pissed off about the whole kneeling thing. Because football is typically pure. Even when you have moments of madness like the replacement refs. Now, it got me thinking, obviously we know that if you're in the United States, you know this. It's Tom Brady and the Patriots versus the Los Angeles Rams. I nearly called them the St. Louis Rams. They are in the Super Bowl. If you listen to the show, you know this too. Because I talked about it just after the Patriots had won the AFC Championship. Now, what you've got here in this situation is a team going for their 6th championship, which is so rare. Only the Pittsburgh Steelers have done this before. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have done it. They did it through the 70s and the early 2000s. You had Terry Bradshaw, undefeated in the Super Bowl. Terry Bradshaw. People forget about that. They say Joe Montana instantly. And of course, Joe Montana is a superior quarterback to Terry Bradshaw. We get that. But the only two guys that are undefeated in the Super Bowl with 4 championships are those two in NFL history. And then you had a couple of rings for Ben Roethlisberger. They have 6 rings. There are a couple of teams with 5 rings. San Francisco is one of them. We just mentioned it with Joe Montana and Steve Young. The Dallas Cowboys with Troy Aikman, Roger Staubach. Then you've got, I believe that's the only other two. And of course, New England with Tom Brady. That's it. Now think about that for a minute, because what I wanted to talk about is what is the greatest dynasty in football, and not just football, but all sports. This is something we can compare, by the way. It's not comparing players. This is not comparing Jordan to Brady, because that's an impossible comparison. However, we can discuss who was more dominant, and I will get into that in this show as well. But when it comes to the best dynasty, we can compare that. We absolutely can. And to me, at least we're going to stick to football for a minute, I think New England has the best dynasty. And the reason I will go with that is, on paper, it could line up. You could line it up with Pittsburgh or whatever. But when I look at who are the figureheads, you got one player and one coach. They have been there for this is their 9th Super Bowl, and it could be for their 6th victory. If they lose, they'll have 5 still to their name. No other player has more than that. Now, you could say, well, okay, Jordan has 6. And I don't want to get too much into Jordan versus Brady just yet. But keep in mind that there is a guy in basketball named Bill Russell, along with Sam Jones, who have more championships than what Michael Jordan does. There is no player with more championships, or Super Bowls, than Tom Brady. Do you know why? It's a more difficult sport, especially at quarterback. Tom Brady is 41. I'm going to repeat that. Tom Brady is 41. As much as I love Jordan, and I respect Jordan, Jordan at 41 was no longer in the league. Jordan at 40 was an all-star, yes, but he didn't even make the playoffs. And yes, I get it, the Wizards were nowhere near as talented as what the Patriots were. I get that, okay, but let's just compare. Tom Brady is on the verge of being a Super Bowl champion at the age of 41. You know, I've got a couple of friends. We went out to Cleveland on Sunday. And I was talking to Marcus, and he said Tom Brady looked like he was 26 out there, referring to the Super Bowl. Oh, not the Super Bowl, the AFC Championship. I can't argue with that. It's not like it wasn't like Peyton Manning in his final Super Bowl appearance up against the Carolina Panthers, where his defense carried him. Tom Brady is still by far and away the best player on that Patriots team at that age. At that age, it's crazy. It is absolutely insane when you think about it that way. And for him to be in the league, what is this? His 19th year, his 18th year? I don't know what it is, but it's not that he's not that far off. He's going up against a young quarterback. How old was Goff, Jared Goff, or whatever his name is, the starting quarterback of the Rams? How old was he when Tom Brady first entered the league? He would have been 5 or 6 years old. Tom Brady is getting to the point where he may start playing against people that weren't even alive when he entered the league. And he's still in the Super Bowl. You know, I get a lot of criticism from people saying that I'm a massive Jordan worshipper, and I'll never ever put LeBron over because LeBron is better than him. This is their words on mine, because LeBron is better than him. But I just won't accept that somebody could potentially be better than Jordan. Bullshit. Listen to the way I'm talking about Brady. I think Brady, win or lose, personally, I think it's hard to argue that Brady is not at least just as accomplished, if not more accomplished, than what Jordan is. Now, you can talk about MVP awards and all that stuff, right? But Tom Brady, for him to be in his 9th Super Bowl appearance at this age, it's not only unprecedented, it's unfathomable. It's unbelievable. No one in their right mind could have ever predicted this. Who 10 years ago would have said Tom Brady would still be going and not just still go, look like he's got about 4 or 5 years left in the tank? Now, I'd be surprised if he plays beyond this season. I think he's aware enough, but maybe he loves the game so much he doesn't even care, just like Jordan with the Wizards. But I think he's self-aware enough to realize that he can't top this. Even if he loses, he cannot top this. I mean, what are the odds? But then again, what were the odds 10 years ago? But what are the odds that he comes back and does it all again and reaches his 4th straight Super Bowl. This is his 3rd straight Super Bowl. Like, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. And you know what is even crazier? They were a Belichick fuck-up. And when I say fuck-up, I'm talking about the benching of Malcolm Butler. You can make an argument that they probably would have beaten Philadelphia last year had they not benched Butler, because their defense got torched. And Butler, if you guys don't know, was their premier cornerback, and the cornerback is the guy that actually guards the wide receivers. So in an offensive shootout, I can't remember any punts in that game at all, by the way. In a shootout between these two teams, are you telling me that their best cornerback would not have made a difference? I think it would have. So had that not happened, if we're going to play the hypothetical game, Tom Brady could be going for a three-peat at the age of 41 in this game. And you want more of a hypothetical, he could be, you take away that loss, and then you'd say, well, it took a couple of fluky losses to Eli Manning. And when I say fluky, I mean once in a million year plays. David Tyree's catch. And forget about the catch, think about the fact that Eli Manning was actually wrapped up, about to get sacked, and he somehow got out of that tackle and was able to just launch the ball downfield. David Tyree goes up to catch it. He's able to pin the ball to his helmet, with Stan getting belted by Rodney Harrison, one of the hardest hitting safeties you'll ever see in the NFL, and make the catch. Incredible stuff, and that's what it took to beat them. This team could be 7-1 or 6-2. Oh, it's just insane when you think about this level of dominance from one team, one dynasty. Now, if you want to compare them to the Celtics, once again, it's difficult to, because the Celtics, that was over an extended period of time. Yes, they won 11 out of 13, but the basketball was very new at that stage. Towards the end, they started to struggle a little bit, especially up against Wilt. Early on is where they really did a lot of their damage. And the only team that really pushed them was the Lakers with Elgin Baylor and Jerry West. But I'll grant you that the Celtics, that was probably a more dominant dynasty. I'll give you that. But was it more impressive? That's up for you to decide. I think the Patriots and what they have done and the levels of parity that they've had to endure. The only real superstar Tom Brady has ever had on offense was Randy Moss. And he made him better. People think about Randy Moss with Minnesota and how he tore up the league early on. Randy Moss was not always that dominant guy. Think about his production or lack thereof when he was playing in Oakland. And they were able to get him for, a 6th or a 5th round pick, something like that. It wasn't even a big piece that they had to trade for him. Getting Randy Moss was honestly similar to the way that the Bulls got Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was basically kicked to the curb because the Spurs didn't want him anymore. Same with the Oakland Raiders. They did not want to deal with Randy Moss anymore. Other guys you might think of, Corey Dillon. Cincinnati did not want him. I mentioned him before, Rodney Harrison. San Diego did not want him. A lot of these players were retreads. Somehow Belichick and Brady made them a lot better. This is a sign of one of the best dynasties, if not the best dynasty you will ever see. And for everybody that will openly say that they hate the Patriots, I'm not saying, like the crap that I get saying, you hate LeBron and all this. I'm saying when I ask people and I ask them who do they think will win, a lot of them will say, I think that New England will win, but I would want to see LA win because I hate the Patriots. That's my most common response I've gotten to that question. Just be aware that this type of greatness, especially in football, virtually never comes around. We have also seen when you're talking about the dynasties in the NFL and in the extended periods, you had the Steelers, as I said, in the 70s. You had the 80s with the 49ers. In the 90s, the early 90s, you had the Cowboys. Late 90s, you had the Denver Broncos who won back-to-back titles. Notice that we're talking about 5, 6, 7 year spans for those dynasties. We're not talking about 18-year spans for dynasties. This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible, what we are seeing here. I cannot speak higher of it. It's the greatest in my opinion, it's even more impressive than what the Bulls did. Because I'm not going to say Jordan had Pippen, because I think Jordan made Pippen. But I would also say that Pippen was more effective throughout their entire run than any single player that Tom Brady has had. I mean, you can compare Belichick to Phil Jackson all you want. I think that's probably a decent comparison, by the way. Because here's the scary thing about Belichick. People just want to talk about his success in New England. Keep in mind that when he was a coach in Cleveland, he laid the groundwork for what you saw with Baltimore with Ray Lewis. Because, I know, try to keep up with me here. It's a bit of a mindfuck. But the Cleveland Browns in the 90s, they were moved to Baltimore. Right? It was similar, if you're an NBA-only fan, it's similar to what happened with Charlotte being moved to New Orleans. For a few years, there was no team in Charlotte. Then the NBA gave a license to build a team, put a team back in Charlotte. So the original Charlotte Hornets is actually the New Orleans Pelicans. The original Cleveland Browns is actually the Baltimore Ravens. So you can say that his fingerprints are all over that Baltimore Ravens first title. Not their second one, but their first one. And if you go back a little bit further, a lot of people say that Belichick deserved a lot more of the credit for the New York Giants championships. So as successful as he has been in New England, we completely overlook what he actually did in those two franchises. Now, of course, if you're looking at Phil Jackson, you've got to also take into account what he did with the Lakers. He did with 5 other titles with the Lakers, and he won 2 with the Knicks. It's insane. It's insane. It's insane because you think about how big these sports are, and you're talking about 2 guys that, you know, Belichick has his as I said, his fingerprints on 8 championships, and Phil Jackson has 13 championships. It's incredible. Truly incredible. But now the time has come where I've got to make a prediction. And this is not easy because it's not an easy prediction to make. The Patriots, as I've just talked them up, they've got all the experience in the world. Nothing will rattle them. What can be done, though, is a team can outplay them. They can be out-executed because they are not the most talented team in the NFL. And one of those teams that does have more talent, at least on paper, is the Los Angeles Rams. They are very young, though. Even their coach is young. Tom Brady is older than their head coach, if you can believe that. By nearly a decade. Jesus. Isn't that funny? But what I see happening, the game is going to either go 2 ways. And I'm not going to pussy out. I will give you a prediction. But it's going to go in either 2 ways. Either the Rams handle that pressure. If they're able to handle that pressure and they meet the moment right there and look it dead in the eye and overcome it, they will win this game. If they don't, they will not. Because the Patriots will exploit them. Now, there's one thing I'm looking at, and nobody's really talking about it. But how is New England going to face how are they going to handle the pass rush of the Rams? Wade Phillips, you know, he's a fantastic defensive coordinator. We saw what he was able to do with the Denver Broncos and what they were able to do up against Cam Newton during his MVP season. Excuse me. So the biggest question for me is, it's even bigger than if the Rams can handle the pressure or the spotlight, is how will New England try to handle and contain that pass rush of Aaron Donald and Sue and all those other guys? Because if Tom Brady is pressured, I don't like their chances at all. I don't like New England's chances at all. He has to stay upright, just like every other quarterback has to stay upright. And if they have to go shotgun to give him an extra second, that's not good enough. Because they know what's coming. They don't have to respect the run game. And really, when you look at the last 2 games, the run game has really been effective for New England. They would not have gotten here had they not manhandled both Kansas City and the Chargers, another Los Angeles team. I nearly called them San Diego. How would they... That's one of the reasons they actually got here. They were able to control the clock, Think about opening drives for both occasions. They're able to wind the clock down, wear down the defense. If New England is throwing the ball, expect 3 and outs against this Rams defense. They are a good defense. So the time has come as to who I think will win. I think if it was any other quarterback or head coach, you can give me any other quarterback or head coach. Not just, when I say any, I'm not referring to Andrew Luck or anybody like that. I'm talking about all-time greats. You could offer me Aaron Rodgers. You could offer me Peyton Manning. These guys in their prime. I would go with the Rams. But it is Tom Brady. And I think they are going to win. I think they will win. I think they will control the clock. I think they'll do what they need to do. I think they'll get out. It'll almost be a carbon copy of last week, what we saw against Kansas City, where they're able to control the tempo. And yeah, we will see some glimpses of a comeback, maybe even a competitive game in the fourth quarter. But when it comes down to it, just like we saw last week, the moment of truth arrives. Is this team capable of rattling Tom Brady? Kansas City could not do that in the overtime or late in the fourth quarter against Tom Brady. So I think, I'm not saying it with a whole lot of confidence because it's such an evenly matched team, and this is why American football, I've grown to love it so much. This is an absolute chess match. Yeah, my queen might be up, but guess what? You don't have either of your rooks, and I've got one of your bishops. Who's got the advantage at that stage? That's the beauty of it. That's the absolute beauty of it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to watch it. I just wish I could say the same about the NBA right now. But yeah, that's where we're going to finish up the show for today. And I did laugh a couple of times, so I guess I'm a liar, right? But I hope you guys enjoyed Garbage Time, episode 4. Because there was some basketball. You will have heard this as well as on YouTube and Facebook, but also on iTunes, also on Spotify, also on Stitcher, also on Google Play, also on iHeartRadio. I don't know where else I've been. This is, by the way, the number 1 ranked basketball podcast in Australia. Let's see if we can do that in the United States. I don't think I've got a chance with that because it's too much competition. Although I did get it to number 2 during the playoffs last year. That was cool and very unexpected. But once again, guys, thank you for spending some time with me. I hope you're having a good day. If you're in the, I should say good day, right? I hope you're having a good day. That sounds a bit weird. If you're in the Midwest, or if you're affected by this very extreme cold front, please stay safe. Please stay warm. Limit your driving because those roads are an absolute bastard out there. And I will see you on the next episode.